Let's do some ordering of fractions, least to greatest. And we're going to be thinking about using benchmark fractions and also just thinking about how much of the fraction is as close to a whole or as close to zero. So we have 1/2, 4/6, 5/11, 7/8, 2/3. And also something I forgot to mention is that we are going to be making common denominators as well to help us order them. So right off the bat, is there one that stands out that might be the least or the greatest? So to me, I noticed that 7/8 is pretty close to one whole because it's only 1/8 away to being one whole. So let's see if there's any others that are as close to one whole. 1/2, 4/6. 4/6 is 2/6 away. 5/11 is 6/11 away. And this is 1/3 away. So I'm pretty sure 7/8 is the biggest because it's closest to one whole. So I'm going to put 7/8 down here. This is my greatest down here, and we'll have our least down here. So I think that 7/8 is the greatest. All right, so what about the rest of them? I know that 4/6 is larger than half because 3/6 would be half. So this is smaller than that. What about 5/11? Well, half of 11 would be 5.5. So I know that this is less than 1/2. And 2/3, I know that's greater than 1/2. So my smallest one here is 5/11 because it is smaller than 1/2. And these two are not, these are larger than 1/2. And 1/2 is right there. So 5/11 is my smallest. Now we have 1/2, 4/6, and 2/3. And we said that both 4/6 and 2/3 are both greater than half. So half must be my next one. Oh, this is a little tricky here. I have 4/6 and 2/3. Which is bigger than the other? Let's make the denominators the same to be able to compare them. So I have 4/6 and 2/3, and I want them to both have the same denominator. So we're going to find the least common multiple between the two of them to be able to make them that denominator. So the multiples of 6 are 6, 12, 18. I could keep going if I need to, but let's start with 3. Multiples of 3, 3, 6, 9. And already I've realized I don't need to keep going because 6 is my least common multiple. So both of these are going to have a denominator of 6. So I can compare them more easily. 3 times or divided by what gives me 6? 3 times 2 gives me 6. So if I multiply my denominator by 2, I have to multiply my numerator by 2 because remember, this has to be equivalent to 1. I'm multiplying this fraction by a fractional form of 1. So 2 times 2 would give me 4. And this, when I'm just multiplying by 6, it's the same. Oh, look at that. They're actually equivalent fractions. So 2/3 and 4/6 are worth the same amount. Therefore, they both come next in my ordering of fractions. All right, let's try another one. How about 5/12, 2/3, and 1/4? Let's compare those. So let's think about those benchmark fractions. 1/4 is actually a benchmark fraction. We can really easily visualize that. 1/3 is also a benchmark fraction. We can really easily visualize that. So we know that 1/4 is, a quarter of a whole, and 2/3 is larger than half, and 5/12 is that larger than half or is it less than half? If we have 12 and we split that in 2, if we divided that by 2, we would get 6. So I would have to have 6/12 to be half. So that's also less than half. So my smallest would be 1/4. And this was less than 1/2, and that's greater than 1/2. So 5/12 comes next, and 2/3 comes after that. All right, well, I didn't get to make common denominators with that example, so let's see if I can come up with another one where I have to. How about 11/12 and 10/11 and 7/8? All right, how about that? Well, we know that the 12ths is, but these parts are going to be smaller than the 11ths, and they're both 1 away from being whole. So that one's probably not the best example either. All right, so let's just go ahead and do it since I've already started. So these are both 1 away from being whole. But these pieces, since there's more of them, what do we know? We know that because there's more pieces, these are going to be smaller pieces. So that means it's only 1 away, but these pieces are smaller than this one. So that means that this must be a smaller fraction than that, because that smaller piece, to get to 1, just takes a smaller piece to get to 1 than it does for this one. So this is a smaller fraction. So that would be 10/11 and 11/12. And that would make our 7/8, because that also is 1 away from being whole. But because the 8s are bigger size pieces, that means that one piece is a bigger chunk away from being whole. So that's 7/8. So let's see. Okay, I think we'll just end there. But if you want to do some more making common denominators, you can watch some of the other equivalent fractions by multiplying or dividing by forms of 1.